we live in a country that has for many, many decades prided itself on being the premier democracy in the world. But we are no longer the premier democracy in the world. In fact, democracy is under systematic assault from the right wing in this country, and the right wing, unfortunately, includes the Supreme Court of the United States. We are now seeing the results of a decades-long effort to infiltrate the judicial system and the political system for the purpose of thwarting the democratic process. There is no kinder way to put it. In 2013, your Supreme Court and mine chose to gut many of the protection of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The passage of that act was a proud moment in American history following upon the tragic death of John F. Kennedy. Now, as Robert Reich and others have pointed out, there is a full anti-democratic movement on the march in the state houses across this country. A number of states are requiring government-issued photo IDs, such as driver's licenses, to vote, even though there's no evidence of the kind of voter fraud they say this will prevent. Now, they've been aided and abetted by this by media like the Wall Street Journal, who have made a big issue of so-called voter fraud. But the fact is, there's no evidence of anything other than a very, very scattered handful of incidents. There is evidence that laws like these disproportionately disenfranchise poor people and minority folks from voting, which, let's be honest, is the absolute goal here. Now, other legislatures are cutting back on funding for voting, so we saw some of the results of that in Wisconsin this week. We've seen it in Arizona. We've seen it in other states across this country. You should not have to wait hours and hours to vote in the United States of America. That is not the sign of a true democracy, because you know who can't wait hours and hours to vote in this great country of ours? Working people. Working people who depend on every hour of income they make, and most of whom do in fact receive an hourly wage. A, they're not going to get time off from their bosses to do it in many cases. And B, even if they do, they can't afford to lose the income. So this is something that is another example of the Republican right hurting the democratic process. As Robert Reich suggests, we need a new Voting Rights Act, one that sets minimum national standards, one that includes automatic voter registration, one that allows at least 2 weeks of early voting. Bernie Sanders has also proposed election day registration as well. As Sanders and Reich and many others have said, voting isn't a privilege, it's a right, and it's part of our democracy.